And we're live. Hello, everybody. Today we are going to be chatting about season 2 of Shadow and Bone. This will be spoiler filled. So if you haven't watched the show and you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch, especially because we're just going to jump right into it. And we're going to start with the end of the show. And we're going to let Jessie kick it off because Jessie has lots of thoughts. She's kind of bursting because I told you that I wanted to wait to talk about it and you didn't want to wait.
Oh my gosh, wow, you're just putting me right on the spot. All right. I mean, I'm not mad about it. So I literally just finished it yesterday. So it's very fresh in my brain. And honestly, what I was most curious to talk about was why Elle and Leanna, why you both hated it.
Well, I didn't hate the show overall. I hated
hate it either.
parts of the ending.
Hated parts of the ending. Yes.
Parts of the ending.
Yeah, I should have clarified. Didn't hate the show, hated parts of the ending. Because I'm just very curious. Like, they're going off book here, and where we leave Mal and Alina is very much not where we leave Mal and Alina in the books. And Alina doing a little bit of the shadow cut. I was like, excuse me? And then the little smirk at the end. I was like, excuse me? You're just gonna leave it right there? I was shocked because they'd followed the book so closely, really up until kind of the ending episode.
Yeah.
So my thoughts are more around like the Shadow and Bone storyline. I know we have a lot to chat about with the Six of Crows / Crooked Kingdom storyline that I'm sure you all will be able to talk much more about in regards to how it relates to the books, because it's been so long since I've read those where I was like, maybe I need to go back and reread, because I'm like, was Matthias like
because you reread Shadow and Bone before the first season, but not Six of Crows, is that right?
Yes, exactly. I reread Shadow and Bone before watching the first season, so it was super fresh in my brain, and I did not do that with Six of Crows. So yeah, I'm just like shocked at where we're leaving off with Mal and Alina.
I was talking to somebody and they said that Mal was like Arya in Game of Thrones. What's west of Westeros? What's west of Ravka?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I'm more just curious to hear your all thoughts, because I'm not mad about it. I wouldn't say I was mad about anything that happened. I'm more just fascinated because I know that they couldn't have left it the same ending as Shadow and Bone with Ruin and Rising. They couldn't have done it the same way if they wanted to continue to pump out more story with Alina and Mal. It would have just wrapped up too nicely. But it's interesting because we're getting some now King of Scars a little bit. Mm-hmm. That part was very faithful to the books, but the other part.
I really like, Jessie, that you started by being like, well, I mostly just want to know what you think. You express a lot of thoughts. I'm going to say one thing, and then we'll let Leanna go, and then Sarah, and then Sean, being the one that hasn't read any of the books, I feel like gets to have an interesting take on everything, because a lot of us have expectations based on the book, so he's kind of the non-bookish expectations person. Yeah. But okay,
yeah, he doesn't seem very bookish. I don't know what's that back. Is that video games behind you?
So that's Sean's corner. So we have the one. Okay, I have lots of thoughts, but the one thing that I'll say that just hands down, I was like, no, what was that little smile between Tolia? I can never say his name, but him and Inej. I'm like, what the heck is this? God. What is this? No. I did not like that at all. And then I even said, I was like, before I start, I need to not move so much because the camera's going to follow me. And I immediately started getting all over the place. But I didn't like that. I don't know what that's about. It shouldn't happen. I'm pretending it didn't. And then the only other thing is that I was ready for the end of the trilogy, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, because I'm one of those people that likes the end. So I was like all excited and happy to get that ending, and we didn't. I was a little upset about it, but then I'm like, it's the best. It's probably best if you want to keep these characters going. But to your point, like the little sneaky grin and things like that, I'm like, I don't know about this. So I'm going to try to trust in whatever they're planning on. I think they're going to take a very big plot point from book 2, which I don't want to say because I don't want to spoil things for people that haven't read the books, but there's a whole plot point in book 2 that has to do with Alina as a saint, we'll say. And I feel like they're going to combine that plot line because they kind of took it out and they saved the creepy person who shows up at the end of the season. They like saved them for the end of the season. So I think they're going to combine Siege and Storm. Wait, yeah, that's the second one. Siege and Storm, I think they're going to combine with King of Scars plot lines. So, I mean, I mostly was just upset that I didn't get my ending. And then also the Inej thing. I was like, no, I don't like this. But Leanna, I think, has lots of thoughts.
I'll say I like the way that Shadow and Bone trilogy ends as well. So like, you know, I've been a Mal apologist for years. So I like the two of them.
Say, Mel in the show has completely won me over. I freaking love show Mel. Love, like my favorite character. So anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Leanna.
But yeah, so like, I mean, they're clearly doing stuff to like continue it on. And also like if the Darkling is dead, well, then they need a new villain. And let's make Alina the villain because they need somebody doing this stuff. So I was like, okay, whatever. I was surprised that they like rushed through because the first season was Shadow and Bone. So I was like, season 2 will be Siege and Storm, but it was Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising. And I was like, this is a lot. But like, I didn't really like mind that much about what they did because I felt like the characters, other than Alina maybe going dark, other than that, I feel like it's still pretty true to the character arcs and the character like feelings and like their relationships with each other aren't really like that different. It's like specific scenes that are changed and specific scenes that haven't happened, but otherwise, but it's the crows that are a crime. I'm so mad.
We haven't talked about it all yet. I know you probably have the most thoughts.
I'm so mad. Well, because like they are clearly like stalling doing Six of Crows. They're like, we have all of our characters are in position to start Six of Crows, but no, we can't do it. We can't do it. So we're going to skip to the second Six of Crows book and rob it of all of its poignant moments out of context and just sprinkle them in here and there so that the most like epic and heartfelt moments can never happen now in their proper context because they already did them. And it also changes the character dynamics because like Inej and Kaz, like these are famous lines that she says, I'll have you without your armor or not at all. But the context in which she says that is so different. She doesn't know his trauma. She doesn't know his backstory. She doesn't know his deal. And she doesn't know he's been looking for her family. She just knows that he's like kind of like might have a thing for her, but he's really cold. And she's like, look, I'm kind of into you, but you're going to have to like meet me halfway here or we're not doing this. And like, that's the context. Not that she's like, oh, I know you have a mental illness, but screw you, buddy. I'm out. Like Inej would never. Like, what is that?
I did think that choice was really strange. Having her say that line, knowing what she knew about him. I do agree with you there. That was like the one moment where I was like, I love that we're getting this line and she's delivering it flawlessly.
Yeah, if I didn't know like what the show had done, if I had just seen that scene, I was like, oh, they're doing the scene so well and they're playing it so well. Yeah. But it's the fact that like the context, it makes it so different. It makes her so cruel and so callous. And that's something Inej never was. Like,
yeah, I'm curious, Sean, with you not having read the books, like what you think of the Crows like storyline, especially.
Their storyline, I dig it. I mean, I think as far as her being cruel because she knows his trauma a little better than it sounds like she does in the book, I guess I could see that. But as a happy-go-lucky viewer, I was like, I just want those kids to get together. But that was about it. You know, I didn't have a whole lot. I didn't think like she's so cruel. But I can see. Oh, hey, we don't need you. I'm handling it. Lost my train of thought. Oh, but anyways, the Crows in general, I like. They're my favorite part of the show. The only thing that I thought felt kind of filler-y was like we just need them to do something was the get the sword part. I was like, I don't care too much about
that's
this.
Made up and that's not in any book.
So I've heard. Yeah, I thought that was like okay, but the rest of it I liked. We're talking about Crows, keeping up to speed. You sound like you're on an airplane.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, keep going. You said you have it handled. So
All right, I've got it handled.
I'll be back.
Sarah, what do you think?
Well, so for the ending, for the whole show, I was like, I don't really remember what happened in the books too well because it's been like 5 or 6 years since I read them. So when they started going into the third book, I was like, wait, what is this? And so when we're getting towards the end, I wasn't really thinking like, what are they going to do after this to keep the show going? So when like it was obvious that the actual ending wasn't going to happen, I was like, wait, what is this? What is this? What's happening? So I was just like sitting there like speechless because I was just like, I don't know what we're doing here.
So
And I kind of dig it because I remember from the books, I do remember what I liked about the Darkling and Alina. They didn't do this as much in the show. They very much made the Darkling like flat out villain. And I think in the books, there's a little bit more of this like tug and pull between Alina and the Darkling that they explored a little bit, but not quite as much in the books or as in the books. So Alina at some points is truly questioning, like, am I too, like, I do want this power. And I'm kind of like, struggling with myself because I want the power and I know that no one can understand it except him. And she has this kind of internal struggle. And at some points when she leans into the Darkling a little bit, she like shows like a little sign of like maybe having this evilness. And I'm like, oh, I like that. But then she like obviously ends up choosing the light side if we're referring to Star Wars here.
no spoilers. No, I'm just kidding.
The light side. But it kind of reminded me of like, okay, she's exploring like this dark side a little bit.
She's like Anakin Skywalker.
Yes.
Well,
I was gonna say she's like
Yeah.
Rey.
yeah, it's
She's
probably
like
better.
Rey. She's like Rey and Kylo Ren.
And the Darkling is Kylo Ren.
Yes, honestly, it's like that. But so the ending, I was like, oh, this is kind of like
Okay, but
what-
Jesse, like you do know that like Dark Lena shippers also are Reylo shippers. Like this is the same ship.
it's a very similar dynamic.
It's a Venn diagram. They're the middle.
character.
So
yes.
my thoughts on the end, not being a reader, I just want the kids to get together. I mean, that's, both times, like I felt betrayed by them. I felt betrayed by Inej and Kaz of like, what is this? What's going on? I guess I have to watch the next season. So it worked. I'm very invested. As again, someone who knows nothing, I did think it was a little odd that the prince, who I should know his name, but whatever. Nikolai, that's the one. He has some sort of weird shadow beast thing in him. And
He's like a
Alina-
full-on gargoyle in the books.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Alina is showing this, she did her Darkling magic. It feels like kind of the same plot, you know what I mean? Like they both have like, so now they're both ruling and they both have this dark energy about them. And I wonder if maybe that might not play out great, because it just seems like, oh, how are we both going to like get rid of this? They're going to have like the same storyline almost. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, there's more
That's a good
tension
point.
if one of them is struggling with it and trying to hide it from the other one or something. If they're both going through it. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. And I know why they're doing it with Nikolai. I just don't know what they're doing with Alina.
Well, yeah, there's precedent for this with Nikolai, not with
Yes.
Alina.
Yes. So I'm very curious. I'm curious, did anyone get choked up at any point in the season? Like any tears or just like almost tear moments?
I did at Jesper's flashback.
Oh my God. That was so sweet. Okay, Jesper's flashback for you. That was your only moment.
Someone fill me in on what Jesper's flashback was. I don't
When he
remember.
sees his mother and she's like,
So that's interesting, because I think Elle had the same reaction. She's like, "Oh, Jesper's flashback," and I was like, "Man, I must not get it." I must not get it yet.
Yeah, it's
Book
kind of
people.
probably because of the books. Yeah,
Yeah.
That was your only time, Leanna?
I think so. I might
Okay.
maybe other. I don't think so.
I have a couple. Sarah, what about you?
I mean, I cry very easily in general, so I feel like I was crying like on and off for the last 2 episodes, just like there's too many emotions. And also like what's happening. So I was just like on and off. Especially Jenya finding the ring or the plans for the ring. I was just like, can't do it.
It was the Jenya stuff for me. It was Jenya highlight.
I had to remember who Jenya was. I was like, yeah, Jenya. I was like, okay, caught up to speed.
Wait, but I'm so mad that they set up her line and then she never delivered her line.
But she never said it. She never said it.
And they set it
I
up
was
so
screaming.
aggressively too, where they were like, "Oh," the guy went up to her and he's like, "Oh, you're ruined," and I was like, "They're clearly setting up her line." But
I know.
what?
I was waiting for her to say it because it's like one of my favorite lines from that series. But
It's one of the merged lines too.
yes, but that actress, like Chef's Kiss. Oh my
All
God,
of them.
she was incredible. Yes, all of them were amazing. But Jenya, when David saved her, like sacrificed himself and saved her and locked her in, and she screamed. I lost it. I was like,
Oh, that was a good scene. That was sad.
it was so heart-wrenching. Oh my God. It was her delivery of like that anguish. Oh, and then discovering.
Yeah, I even thought during that when she's like really screaming, I thought, man, the director must have been like, give us some more. You know, like we need like a lot of sadness. And she's like, all right, I'm just gonna go for it. Because it was a lot. It's a lot to take in.
Turn it up to 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other moment was the Blade storyline. I was like, okay, this is obviously filler to have the crows do something. But it was when the Saint Nayar, I think is how you pronounce it, Sancta Nayar, when she's delivering the monologue about like love and
Oh, I think I
having
might have
that
teared up a little bit of
person.
that.
And like, oh, I was like, wait, this is really sweet. So I really liked that. And that was like so not book, but it was really sweet. So those were like the 2 moments that really got
I
me
mostly
going.
liked that because even though that was a made up plot line, I liked that because like the one place we really never get to see is Shuhan. So I
Yeah.
liked that like we got to see Shuhan.
Yeah, it was nice. I didn't mind it. I liked that. part
I
of
liked
it.
that monologue too. It was sweet. And I was like deceiving me into thinking she's nice.
Yeah.
You're
Oh, we were
tricking my
talking
emotions.
about if you got like choked up or emotional at all at any parts in the series.
Everything with Jenya.
Yes, that's what I just. Yes.
That has this been discussed?
Yeah.
When David sacrificed
Way.
himself for Jenya, I lost it.
And just her finding the little drawing for the ring.
No.
I'm repeating everything you probably already said. But I was weirdly choked up even just when they're having that strategy session right before the big battle, and Alina and Mal, it's revealed what might need to happen between them, and you just see Jenya and her, like Jenya's comforting her, or when Jenya shows up underground and initially Nikolai is mad and Alina stands up for her. Just their friendship, everything with their friendship made me emotional. I was like, no. But yeah, Jenya has the saddest life. I was like, could they have been together a little longer before you guys killed him? There
No
were
body,
some-
no death. I'm not that sad about it because I'm like, he's not dead.
I don't know. I feel like he is.
You
I
can't
like
feel
he's
the darkness,
gone.
though.
Is he the shadow monster?
Confirmed.
That would be quite the twist.
Yes. Also, I have to say, I loved the crows fight scenes. Kaz's fight scene with his cane.
Oh, the one that's from Cricket Kingdom?
This is where I'm like, I don't recall Crooked Kingdom or Six of Crows really at all.
That's why I'm
So
so mad because like if I didn't know, I would think that was a
Yes.
good scene. But because I do know the context for which that scene is actually supposed to happen, it's a way better scene in the actual context that it happens. So I'm just like, not that this is a bad scene, but you're poisoning like the future because we can't actually have it now where it's supposed to go in a way
Right.
better way.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder. So maybe this has already been touched on in my technical difficulties phase, but I mean, it very much seems like they're setting up Pekka Rollins to be a kingpin type, like what you see in Daredevil, and him kind of coming back, crawling his way out of the prison and everything, and still having people. He has them on his side, and so I wonder if we're gonna see something with him where it's still gonna kind of be like that scene that you're talking about. It's gonna be that same thing, but heightened, maybe. I don't know, because I was telling Sean, I'm like, there's a scene that happens, and if it's about to happen, I mean, I'm kind of pumped for it because it's a cool scene, but also some of this doesn't happen yet. I wasn't mad that we got some of the character moments for the Crows already, like the one with Kaz. That was a big one. Because at some point, if they don't start incorporating some of the flashback sequences and character motivations, then the Crows are just going to be decoration until we get there. You know what I mean? And then it would feel like besides the point.
But
of
like
having them included.
they could have shown the audience flashbacks to Kaz's childhood so that we know his deal, but his crew is not supposed to know it yet, and like they didn't have to have them find it out during the season. We could know. They don't need to know yet.
Yeah, I think they're just I think they're trying to give us more of the Crows for the viewers that aren't book viewers, so that when we get the main plot line of Six of Crows with the prison, a different prison, or is it? It's a prison. Yeah, sorry, it took me a second to remember. It's a different prison. It's in Fjerda. But when they get that plot line going, I think they don't want to have to try and incorporate all their flashbacks at that point. I think we're going to see some from Inej. And I think we kind of already saw a little bit with Jesper, but I don't think we're going to get the main Jesper stuff in season 3. I think we're definitely going to see some Wylan reveals.
But also with Jesper, like a main like conflict with his character that's holding him back all the time is that he doesn't want to acknowledge his Grisha-ness, and he doesn't acknowledge his Grisha-ness until like the end of Crooked Kingdom. But here he's already like, yeah, you know what? I should probably train and be a baller Grisha. And you're like, it's 2 books worth of like struggling internally. They were just like, nope.
I wonder if we're going to see him be a little reckless with money and such things, though. If we're still going to get some of those things.
Yeah.
No, you go.
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, on the subject of fight scenes, that was actually one of my criticisms of the series. I liked the Kaz fight scene. I liked the second Inej fight scene. I thought the first Inej fight scene, I was watching Power Rangers. I was like, no. And I think they go to the slow-mo thing a little too often. Maybe the actors aren't doing the best at the choreography. I don't know. I feel like they go to that well, and I'm like,
I really like
not everything has to be slow motion. We can just, not have
when
slow
Mal was
motion.
escaping when they were in
Yes.
WSM, that fight scene.
We have the same thoughts on everything. So
I did like that last fight scene, like the really big one with all the bad Grisha, whatever you want to call them, fighting Nikolai and friends. I thought that was a good fight scene, mostly because I really did not like that one Grisha person, and then when she finally died, I was like, thank goodness. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So glad.
Like, whoa,
Which-
geez, because he wasn't expecting Nikolai to shoot her in the throat. That's where he shoots her.
Oh my god, I don't recall her from the books.
I don't think she's from the books.
Okay. I was
Well,
like,
turning Bagra's fingers into amplifiers is not in the books.
right.
Okay, but I have
was-
predictions about that though.
I
I feel like the whole reason they're showcasing her fingers is because the Darkling says, "Make sure no part of me remains," and his hand is around still. I feel like it's to show there is a part of him that still remains, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my guess. But anyway, you're right. That's not in there. I really quick just wanted to touch on the fight scenes thing. So I agree with Leanna. I really liked when we see Mal escaping. I really liked the Kaz one. And there was a couple with Inej that were like, they looked too slow. And there was it was hit or miss. Some of them were really, I thought, crisp and looked really good and they were filmed really well. And then other ones, it seemed like, well, maybe we could have done a few more takes. I don't know. So I think I'm with Sean in that it is kind of a criticism. I feel like the action scenes could have been a little better, but I didn't hate all of them. And I feel like as far as special effects go, I was really nervous about the concept of his shadow monster. I was like, how are they going to make this look good? I feel like this is going to look terrible. And I thought it looked really good.
Yeah.
I personally was really impressed with how well it was done. I think that the Darkling had terrible dialogue written for him for pretty much the whole season, but I did
It didn't help that he delivered it as like a kind of villain. You're like, he could have like delivered it a little more subtly, a little more chill.
just some of it though, like I don't know what else he was supposed to, like that part where he's in the shadow fold and he's like, okay, Miss Darkoff, what will it be? He doesn't say okay, but he does have like a Miss Darkoff, what will it be? And I'm like,
I have always contended that Cillian Murphy would have been the ideal Darkling, and I feel confident that he would have delivered those lines with more subtlety and less.
I will say, on the note of Cillian Murphy, Kaz Brekker looks like he belongs in Peaky Blinders.
That's what I said in my non-spoiler review, that I need those two to make something together, because they even kind of they don't look alike necessarily. They both have an intensity to them.
They could be like siblings.
Yes, or like cousins, or they're in some mob family together. It needs to happen. Someone needs to make it happen.
Yes. Every time I saw him, I was like, am I watching Peaky Blinders?
In fairness, until we got a Shadow and Bone adaptation where Six of Crows, until we got a live action Kaz, like I think everyone used like Cillian Murphy and Peaky Blinders as like a stand-in for Kaz.
Yeah, he's a great Kaz. Okay, can we talk about Wylan and how cute Wylan is? I love Wylan.
He is precious.
So great.
I do too, but I'm still mad that he and Jesper are ready to retire and live their lives in the countryside already, when they're supposed to like barely have started to like acknowledge that they might both swing that way in the middle of Six of Crows. No, they've already even had a one-night stand before we even see them together. I was like, what?
Yes, I will say I wanted a little bit more slow burn, like the build-up for it, but they're really cute.
The cast even quoted the line that we could never have, where like in like some like audience question was like, you know, oh, are they does he like him or something like that? And he's like, well, there is a line from the books, you know, where Jesper's talking about flirting with girls and how to flirt with girls, and Wylan is like, just girls? Yeah. And Jesper's like, no, not just girls. But here they're like, oh, don't you remember we already banged like a little while ago? And he's like, oh yeah, you're that guy. It's like, where's the just girls? Like, where's that moment?
Yeah, it's funny because they really didn't have a ton of, because they've already developed and made it clear that there's feelings between Inej and Kaz, and then they've already done, clearly Mal and Alina have feelings for each other, and they're like, oh, Jesper and Wylan, like they're together. So what it feels like they're doing is they're giving it to us and they're taking it away. They're like withholding.
Well, the only plot line that remains like intact is Nina and Matthias, because poor Matthias was just stuck in jail with his plot moving nowhere for the whole season. So their plot could remain unscathed because they couldn't pull anything out of.
I saw a graph
out of jail.
The amount of screen time for each of the crows, and poor Matthias was like, so it was like 11 minutes total.
Well, the actor said he felt so lonely because like the rest of the cast is filming all these scenes together, and he's just like alone in Hellgate.
On the note of Matthias, is this book accurate? I don't remember. I legitimately don't remember. I think
that the problem is that by the time Nina interacts with the other crows, Matthias has been in prison for a long time. Not like years and years and years, but he's been there for a while, and she's trying to get him out, but she hasn't been able to yet. So I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make that realistic as far as how long he's been there, but they just made it happen over the course of this season instead of it because they took their flashback and they made it a present day plot point in season 1. So then in season 2 they had to find a way to not have him get out immediately. I think that's what they're going for.
Well, because at the end of season 1, all the crows were in like ready to go for the Six of Crows plotline. They were all like in position to start Six of Crows, and they were like, well, we can't do that, so do other stuff while we wait.
Yeah, I did really like the last scene and how they immediately upped the stakes with the Jirda Panem, the drug, whatever, I forget how to pronounce it. That moment where she's like, I was like, is everyone about to die? Like, I truly was like, what are we doing here? What is it
Can you
about?
imagine if they just killed Alina like that?
Like, I
Like,
was
oh, this is the ending. And
this-
Val's gonna be devastated.
like for a moment I was like, is this what we're doing? Like, but that was really like powerful, like how intense that power was when they had the drug, which I do love how they showed the stakes right away for season 3. It makes me very excited to continue on.
I didn't
all
know
have
what was
any-
happening in that scene, but it was disturbing. I was like, why is everyone exploding and bleeding?
Yeah, Sean was like,
Very
good lord.
unexpected. Yeah, it's like
Do any of you have predictions for future seasons or
no.
wants? Or- Sean has none.
Well, I mean,
I'm
next
gonna-
season they're going to do Six of Crows and simultaneously King of Scars.
How is Inej going to get back to?
I'm sure they're going to say that they need Mal's ship for the heist. They're going to incorporate a sea voyage into the heist so that they're like, Mal has a ship and that brings Inej back. And now Mal can be part of the heist, even though he's definitely not in the heist in the books.
Can I just say something about Mal? Do we really have to do the whole like, oh, I have to find out if we like actually love each other, if this
So
is just like
contrived.
destiny or something? It's like, give me a break, dude. Like, just can we skip to the part where you're home? Like,
Or they're both crying and neither wants to leave. And you're like, so
Yeah.
no one's making you.
Yeah.
you leaving?
Yeah.
It
I
did
have to go. I have to go be
Yeah,
a
I just-
pirate. I'm
I don't,
sorry.
I don't understand how are we supposed to know if we really love each other? Well, do you? Just like you died, and the whole I feel compelled.
Sorry,
you know,
privateer.
purpose.
Privateer.
Thank you for that, Sean. It was really necessary
Yes.
clarification.
It's like,
yeah, but
Anyways,
I told Sean afterwards, I'm like, yeah, I'm exactly with you. Because if for whatever reason I never had to eat food again to survive, which would be amazing, I would still know that cinnamon rolls are tasty. I wouldn't be like, how do I even know if I like this food? Because I don't have to eat anymore. I'm like, well, okay. So you had the question of, was it destiny that brought us together? Well, now that destiny is over, do you still have those feelings? Yes. Well, then you love each other. It's that simple. Like, the destiny didn't make you guys fall in love with each other. So yeah, Sean and I are on the same page with that one. Sarah, do you have thoughts on that too? Because I feel like you had an expression as soon as Sean started to say it.
Well, because like for me in the books, Mal was just like everything he was just tied to Alina. So it's like he was just so like bland to me. So like I can see. So when I first finished the show, I was like so mad. I was like, I don't like this. But then I sat and thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, okay, at least he has a chance to like have a personality outside of Alina. But I don't know if I like that or
Well,
not.
on that note, I am really glad that they took out the tattoo and the I am made of blade, blah, like that. I'm so glad we didn't do that with Mal. I was like, that would have been so corny.
I'm like right in the middle of Sarah, what you just said, and Ellen, Sean, what you're saying, because it is contrived. Like, you can tell that they are making this up because the book is such a different ending that they need to keep it going. So you can tell it's kind of like forced a little bit. But I do have to admit that, like, I can kind of see where Mel's coming from, where he doesn't really have a purpose without Alina. And it's like,
But you know what they could have
you
done?
gotta
They
figure it
could have,
out
because
yourself.
the whole thing originally, right, was that Mal agreed that for Ravka, Alina and Nikolai should be together because, like, that's like politically most expedient, and like, who cares about your personal happiness when the nation's at stake? So if at the end, like, it was decided that, like, no, Alina for political reasons does need to be with, now the nation is like fractured, like they need to rebuild together and they need to do that together. And if Mal was like, I agree that this is what's right, but don't ask me to stay here and watch. Like, maybe I'll come back, but I can't be here to watch this happen because
Well,
that's too painful. Then he could leave
Mal-
and
Mal better be careful because Nikolai's a tall drink of water. I mean, like, let's be real. That dude is hot. So, like, I'm just saying, Mal,
A lot of this show, Sean be like,
come back.
Sean often would be like, oh, the men in the show are yummy. Matthias, of course, when Matthias has to fight,
And-
Sean's like,
And you know
"Yum."
what? You know what? Nikolai, too, when he was introduced, I was like, I feel like I'm not supposed to like this guy because, you know, I just didn't trust him. But I was like, he's such a charmer. I like that guy. He's great. I wouldn't even care if she ended up with him. I'd be like, "Missed your chance, bud."
Okay,
know,
so
like-
I'm gonna interject for just a second to bounce off of what they could have done, because I agree, Sarah, completely that I initially had the exact same feeling of like, this is dumb. I don't like this ending. And I'm like, well, it makes sense that he finally gets to live for himself and she finally gets to live without, I have to do this. And now she's kind of like, no, this is what I choose to do. And I respect that they're both doing that, but I don't get the like, we have to break up plotline basically, because you can be like, okay, I have to go do this. And, you know, Alina's like, I have to stay. And hopefully our paths cross again, as opposed to like, do we really love each other? Like, I just didn't think that was necessary. You could do the exact same thing, but have them in different places. And there be this level of understanding of, okay, well, while we're apart, if you and Nikolai, if something happens, I won't hold that against you. That dynamic, I feel like that, like a long distance relationship, essentially, where it's understood that we love each other, but we're going to go our separate ways and maybe we'll come together again. Not like, I don't know. We'll see.
I agree. I agree. It was kind of a forced issue that they just kind of.
I still am not cool with the Inej look between her and Tolia. No.
Well, because they've already like, okay, because Kaz and Inej, like, they have like taken their relationship to the end already. So the only way to create tension is if they introduce like a love triangle where Inej might have something with Tolia, and now Kaz has lost his chance with her, even though he did all the things that won her heart in the books. She's like, nope, goodbye. So like,
yeah, I really hope they don't pull a Kaz's healing from his trauma is motivated by wanting to win Inej from this other man. I hope that's not something they fall back on, because no one likes that. But I can also see them, because they have handled certain things really well, I could also see them deciding that Kaz, he is going to take that time to heal on
you
his
just
own.
made me
Like,
realize something too. So like, because we hurried up and did him confronting Pekka Rollins, which by the way, that happens in Crooked Kingdom. So we already did him like facing his nemesis that was like built up to over 2 books, where like, this is the guy that he hates and wants revenge on and is like brooding about it all the time. And everyone's like, why are you brooding? And he's like, none of your business. It's Pekka Rollins. So like, he still needs to be brooding, even though we took care of that already. So he's going to be brooding about Inej. That's what he's gonna be brooding about, and I'm so mad about it.
I'm glad I didn't reread the Six of Crows duology, because having like no memory of it, I'm not as bothered, but I can totally understand where you're coming
did you,
from.
when I had my technical difficulties phase, did you address the him in the cart with people by him?
No,
Because it,
but we
because
can.
that,
No.
yeah, because I was like, wow, they're doing this. I mean, I guess
Those
that
are
makes
my
sense.
words. I was watching with my parents, and I was like, "Are they doing this already?"
They're making it very clear he doesn't like to be touched. Okay. No, I have to say, early. Oh, go ahead. Sean.
Sorry, very, very minor, very, very minor complaint just about Kaz and his nemesis. I was like, is it worse to have your son see you arrested than just dying? You know, like I feel like that a lot of opportunities to just kill that guy. I was like, can we just take him out? But I guess like we have
You
to like
wanted him to
humiliate him or something. But I was like,
But
okay.
then he's not around to create more tension in later seasons.
Well, yeah, I know. That's kind of the point.
Yeah, Sean was like, I feel like they should just kill him then. But I don't know. I kind of feel like it is very in Kaz's character to be like, no, I want his empire to topple. I feel like that's pretty.
Well, the whole
Pretty
idea of
true
like
of him.
death's too good for you. Like, I watched, my brother die, and I lost everything. So like, you're gonna watch things happen and be helpless to like help the people. You know what I mean?
I just really liked his son, Pekka Rollins' son, when they find him and he's like, ha! He just looks like. I can't tell if this is just a really accurate way a kid would behave, or if this kid is just like, I don't know what's going on.
And then he broke the piano on purpose.
It was great.
Oh my god. It's like I'm not like mad about anything that they did. It just at this point, especially with like them doing Inej and Talia, that was the moment where I was like, this is fan fiction of this series at its finest at this point. It's like if someone's just writing a fan fiction. And that's how season 1 felt, combining the Crows and the Shadow and Bone cast. Was like, this is fan fiction at its finest.
Well, the Crows showing up on the battlefield with Kaz in the full suit and hat and cane on a battlefield was extremely fan fiction. I was like, what are you doing here? Go
I was like,
home.
is Jesper wearing a kilt? I kept asking. I'm like, I think he's wearing a kilt or some form of clothing that looks like a kilt. And I'm like, I kind of respect that they had him in his goofy little top hat and kilt for this very important fight scene.
You know, it's like, I'm not mad. I'm really not. It's just kind of fun to see them play with it. And like, Talia's great. I mean, Inej deserves someone really, really good. So, all of the like Kaz Inej fans are gonna be like, Jesse.
You're lucky I like you.
I mean, maybe Talia's.
I do like that
course.
actor, and I liked how he played that character a lot.
I do too. Yeah, Tamar and Talia were great, and they never stood out to me a lot in the books, but they were really fun to watch in the show.
All the jokes about him and his poetry always landed. I was always laughing about that.
It was so cute. Yeah, I just had such a good time, and I like the casting was just incredible
perfect.
for every character. I can't think of anyone I
I've
would
heard
have.
a couple people say they didn't think Nikolai was the Nikolai they wanted, and I'm like,
okay.
You take that back.
I-
Nikolai is perfect.
I do have thoughts on Nikolai. You've reminded me that I
because
do.
before we watched it, you were nervous about Nikolai.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's not what I pictured from the books. I always pictured this man who was huge and like golden, and I don't know why.
So
A
Hercules?
statue? Someone might have touched her.
I like the only thing that like I pictured him would be like a little bit taller. He was quite short, but otherwise he was
Yes.
exactly what I pictured.
Really? Oh, I just don't know why I pictured somebody totally different. But I don't know. Nikolai was fine.
I was
think
sad about all the
Nikolai
lines that they so they didn't have Jenya's ruination line. I don't know why, even though they set it up. And then there's so many Nikolai lines that are so famous that he could have said. And he said like, you know, the impossible, improbable one. But there's so many other great lines he has that he could have said. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't use that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sarah? Because Sean just likes him. He doesn't have any
Yeah.
things ahead of time.
In the books, he wasn't like my favorite or anything, so I didn't really have any expectations. So I was fine with him. Like,
Yeah, I think so. In the books, Jesper and Nikolai were ones that like they kind of irritated me at times. And I feel like the actor that did Jesper, I'm like, Kit Young, I think his name is. I was like, okay, you've made me love this character. And you didn't really change him. You just made me like him more by your pure charisma. And I feel kind of similar to Nikolai because in the books, to me, he's kind of annoying. And he's that character that just never shuts up and he never lets the moment be serious ever, to a point where it's kind of cartoonish. And I feel like this actor, I thought he felt more like a real human being. So I think where the difference is people, and I could be wrong because this is a very big generalization, but people who really love him in his book form, I think are the ones that are kind of like, I don't know. Whereas those of us that maybe were like Sarah and I were like neutral to maybe he's a tiny bit annoying, I think are more inclined to like him in the show. He felt more like a person to me.
Yeah. And I gotta say, the actress who plays Alina is fantastic at creating chemistry with every person she needs.
And she can deliver some lines. I mean, she has some lines where I'm like, yeah.
Because she had chemistry with Mal, she had chemistry with Nikolai, and she had chemistry with the Darkling. And I was like, I believe all of it. So
Add to that, Mal is precious. He's precious. Like the whole beginning when he just, the way he looks at her, his level of protectiveness in the show, and the level of like being courteous and being a gentleman, and he's just, I'm like,
And
he's
putting
so,
up with Nikolai being a twat to him.
yeah, and just he's like nothing to do with appearances or anything, but I just kept being like, he's so cute. He's so precious.
Love Mal. I love show Mal. I did not like book Mal, and I love show Mal. I really do. That's the character. That's like my Jasper for you, Al. I like had so many issues with Mal from the books, but in the show, I was just like, this actor is making me absolutely love this character, and I do think that they changed just a hint of Mal from the books to the show, where he
Mal's
wasn't,
cockier in the books.
yeah, there wasn't as much like angstiness between Mal
He's
and
far
Elena.
more
It was
patient
a very
and
like
understanding.
mature relationship between the two. I don't know.
I
Just
agree.
felt good.
I feel like so
liked
like
them.
Kit Young and but Patty Gibson, they like, you know, they can do like the charming and like make Nikolai and Jesper feel like charismatic and like, you know, you love them. Whereas like the guy who's playing Mal, I feel like that is more how Mal is in the books, where he's supposed to be charming and charismatic, and that's why Lena's like, oh my god, he'll never look at me because all the ladies love him. So the show Mal, he's like the opposite kind of charm, where you're just like, I just want to hug him and protect him, and if you're mean to him, you die. He's not
He's
like,
such a
oh, I'm
pure
Mal.
soul. He's strangely like, when people describe like book boyfriends and this is the kind of love that I want in real life, fictional love can never be attained. I feel like he is that example of like, he's understanding, he's patient, he still acts like a person, but he's sweet, and like he's just, you're like, oh, your reactions are never annoying until the last episode, which is why it's even more frustrating, because you're like, Mal doesn't seem like the type to be like, oh, I can't feel north anymore, so what am I going to do with my life? I just that seemed very out of character for how they built him up, but I still thought he was, I just think he's precious. Sean, what about you?
I mean, he was also dead. Maybe that's not the real Mal. You know, maybe that's some sort of
Imposter.
spirit Mal. Yeah, I don't know. That's my prediction. Go really far off book with that one.
I really,
he's dead.
I'm not sure if you touched on this, but did you think it was necessary to have that be the way that he came back? Is her going against the rules and her using
Well, if they're
the
setting up
magic of-
dark, if they're setting up a dark version of her, then yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
I don't know. What do you think, Jesse?
My internet's cutting out just a little bit, so I was catching some of that. But I think your question was around whether it was shocking she used Merzost to bring Mal back. Yeah. Again, that's not from the book, right?
No.
Don't remember that. I'm like, do I just misremember? Because but again, like Leanna said, if they're setting her up to potentially have this evil little seed, I'm like, I don't mind it.
But speaking of Merzost, for the non-book reader, I understand Merzost from the books, so like I didn't really think about it, but people who have not read the books have expressed that they don't understand the difference between the regular Grisha magic and Merzost. So like,
yeah, I don't know what that is.
They never explained it.
I mean, they do. They talk about how it's like when in the first season, Bog was explaining to Alina about how like Merzost.
I don't remember
like,
the first season. That's probably my problem. I'm like, I don't know.
Maybe that's why I thought that they didn't explain it, because I didn't remember them explaining it in the first.
And even in this season, Bagra does say that like, you know, you don't want to be messing with Merzost. Like that's not the small science, that's magic. So like that's that brief like line is given. But
Creating something out of nothing.
So
and there's no like limitations or rules to that, so that's why it's dangerous. It's kind of like alchemy in a sense.
Just in general though, as a person who doesn't remember the first season at all, so takes with big grain of salt, I liked this season a lot, and I have no idea what the magic is. Like when they're like, oh, we're super old, and Mal turns out to be the great whatever grandson. He's the Firebird. I was like, what? What does it even mean? All right, well, I guess I'll go with it. You know, I'm glad. And then like the Dark One's like, cousin. I'm like, you're not really cousins, but you know, I get the thing. You know, you're related, but and then I was like, why are they so old? So I guess it's because we're super powerful. We're old. You know, like I was like, also Darkling guy is really mean to his mom. That was weird too. I was like, be nicer to your mom, Darkling guy. Anyways, that was I had no idea what the magic is. I'm just like, there's elemental magic that seems vaguely Avatar like, and then there's super old people. That's what I took away from
And
the show.
amplifiers.
That's
Which
fair.
again, I was like, I don't know what that is either, but I guess it makes you more powerful.
Okay, the
To be honest,
amplifiers
you
I
kind of
feel
hit
like
the
were,
nail on the head.
amplifiers were elaborated on a little more in season 1 than they were in this season.
Yeah, I
for
remember
sure.
the stag was an amplifier, right? Yeah.
Wait, but also, what happened to Alina's antlers? Shouldn't she
Okay.
still have those?
I thought that too. I forgot because I thought the same thing, and I'm like, they must have done something at the end that made them.
Did
Did
they?
they push it into her?
Did they? I don't remember that.
I don't remember. I thought they like pushed it in or something, so they hit it.
I guess they dealt with it because, in the books, the whole thing is like making sure she's always wearing some kind of scarf or something so they can't see it. And so I was like, maybe when at the end when she like claims her power or whatever at the end of season 1, it seeped into her or something.
But I thought
don't
like
know.
at the end when they're on the boat at the end of season 1, she was covering up because
I
she
thought so
had
too.
that.
We all should have rewatched season 1 before. So really quick, I have another thing is I've seen some people say they feel like I've tried to avoid looking at people's thoughts, but I have seen from comments and things that some people feel the Sea-Whip plotline happened too quick. And I'm like, well, that actually is about how quick it's dealt with in the books. It really is just like, oh, we're dealing with this now. And it's over. Because it's like, well, Mal's here, so he can just find it. And then he
But it
found
happens
and-
like on board the ship, right? It's not like a little cavern, right? There, it's like a big
Correct.
sea battle
Yeah.
to get the Sea-Whip, and the Sea-Whip is
And I'm
huge.
pretty sure the Darkling like shows up right
Yeah.
as that's happening. And then that's
Which
when
is
they-
why it's
fly
canon
away.
that the Darkling does not know that Sturmund is Nikolai, but Kaz immediately knows it, which is why Kaz is smarter than the Darkling, canonically.
And isn't like the Sea-Whip is dealt with like halfway through Siege and Storm. So
earlier, I
Siege and
think.
Storm, yeah, it's like early because Siege and
Very
Storm
early.
ends with them in the tunnel. So I
Yes.
actually had no issues with the pacing of it. And I was actually like, how did they make a full season 1 with just book 1? And they like expertly combined the 2 books, in my opinion. I had no problems with the pacing.
Yeah, I agree. I think other people have been really frustrated because they feel like, oh, they crammed too much. They did those 2 books and plot points from Six of Crows. And I'm like, well, I still feel like it's character development for Crows, as we talked about earlier, but I can see being frustrated. And then
Yeah.
Shadow and Bone, I still think that they're going to take plot points from book 2 and tie them with King of Scars. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense that they were able to completely cut that. And they are looking for the Firebird for a lot longer, I'm pretty sure. And it's a lot more like the Darkling shows up in her dreams and then she shows up to him, and then it's like that a lot. And then there's even in the books, there's that moment where he appears and she thinks it's Mal. So then they have more like they're kissing and stuff. And I'm like, I'm glad they took that out. And I'm glad that as soon as the Darkling revealed himself to be bad, Alina wasn't like, but I still feel feelings for him. Like, I'm glad they took that out because that would have annoyed me.
I
Let-
think
let
that if they dragged out a whole season for book 2 or 2.5 or whatever, I think you might have lost some people. I thought it was paced well, where like I never was bored during the show. I mean, like I said, like I was kind of like the sword thing felt just different than everything else. So I was like, this seems kind of odd, but I mean, it was still interesting. So I
It was
thought it was
literally Mal being like, I found a fetch quest for the crows. Go
Yeah.
handle.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I mean, I think if we'd spent like half a season looking for the Firebird, only for it to be like, I was the Firebird all along, I've been like, ugh, gosh. But
It's like
doing
Dorothy.
it, doing it in like 2 episodes or whatever, I was like, okay, that's fine. Or
I'm
even,
not mad really about anything they did with Shadow
Yeah.
and Bone. I'm only mad about the crows.
I think
Yeah.
it just would have. I think it's hard when people have read the books to not have that instinct. And I'm not trying to discredit anybody who does feel that way, but I do think you're like, oh, I guess they combined 2 whole books, and it's hard to not have almost like take issue with that. But then, almost like what Sarah and I were saying about the end, being like, well, okay, it actually makes sense, but we wanted it because this is what we're expecting. So I think it's a similar feeling of you were expecting this to cover book 2, and then it was like, oh, I guess we're going to 3. But I still don't think that the Darkling is a compelling enough villain in his current state. If we do get him again, I don't think he's a compelling enough villain to have last for 3 whole seasons. He already is too mustache twirling. I think at this point he was interesting in season 1 because you didn't know for part of it, but now that you do, it's like, well, his thing is basically like
he could stick around for 3 seasons if he wasn't so mustache twirling. Like if it was more subtle, where it's like, but you kind of see his point, and you're like, is he wrong? Like it was more of that, less of like a here's my shadows, and I'm wearing a swooshy black cloak, and I'm gonna melt into the. It's like very.
I think they would have had to do up, to your point, the Grisha and the Common Man against each other a lot more. Like you see glimpses of that.
Really get into the X-Men sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yes, you would have had to. Really
Gotta have Magneto.
Kind of exactly what Sean is saying. Like I think viewers who are new to it would have probably been like, I mean, this is kind of a really similar storyline to what we've seen in a lot of other stories. So I think at this point, everybody's kind of on their toes as to what's going to happen next, and whether you like that or not, I guess, of course, is everybody's individual opinion. Yeah. Where it's almost been an hour. Are there any other things that we haven't covered that anybody wants to touch on? I know I missed a chunk because of my internet being annoying.
I do think the Darkling in the show is dead. So I don't think we'll be getting full on what we got from other stuff. I'm trying to, I don't want to
done.
But I do think we're still going to get a lot more Ben Barnes, because I think we're going to explore it with Alina and her having scenes where she's talking to him and confronting this.
When she goes to the ancestral plane and meets Black Panther, the Darkling.
I wonder if she would try to use his fingers as amplifiers.
I bet that she's going to interact with the Darkling, and it's like a
my prediction. Oh, go, Leanna, go.
I was just say there's one last crow thing that I'm mad about.
Okay.
And that's they killed Tanta Helene off screen. So Inej's moment of confronting Tanta Helene in Six of Crows, which is her nemesis in some respects, it's just nope. No, it doesn't matter.
Is this still we didn't see the body situation?
Oh no, I mean when they come back to Ketterdam, they've been accused of murder because Tanta Helene is dead, so they want the crows arrested for it.
Right. I'm just wondering if she's not really, and she just kind of played into letting everybody think she's dead for the.
But I mean, Pekka Rollins owns the menagerie. I don't see Tanta Helene allowing that if she's not dead.
Yeah. The prediction off of Leanna, going back to what Jesse said. My prediction is that the Darkling is not totally gone. I like what you're saying, Jesse, where Ben Barnes is still going to be there because he's going to be in her head. But my guess is that we're going to get at least a season of him not being an actual villain, but someone else. And I talked about the religious aspects becoming a thing, and kind of that tying into politics and whatnot and expectations of Alina. But if Alina's going to have this, do I or do I not, do I pursue the evil path or not? I think that by the end, eventually she's going to be like, I don't want to become him. And I think she'll give up her powers, however she manages to do that. I think she's going to give up her powers, and that's when he's going to come back. And then you're going to be like, well, how are they going to defeat him now? Because she doesn't have her powers. And so I think that could be a potential.
They'll get the crows to defeat him.
With the sword. The sword will defeat him. And then, I mean, that could explain more of how Shuhan is the name, right? How they're incorporated, where maybe they have to get other saints. And then the only other thought I had, which is we barely see Zoya, but that's the only character so far where I'm like, I don't feel like they've pinned Zoya's character down quite yet. I feel like she's less flirty in the way that she's flirty right now. I feel like she's more like dominatrix type of character, and I don't really get that vibe from her thus far. But anyway, I
remember not liking Zoya until King of Scars. Yes. So maybe next season is when she'll finally have her moment to shine.
Sean, do you have final thoughts?
I liked it.
Sean said it's his favorite fantasy adaptation since Game of Thrones, right?
Oh yeah, I was shouting about how much I hate Witcher, the show, and how much better this was than Witcher. Witcher's so boring. I'll say it a million times. It's very boring.
Also, this looks more. I have no idea what the budgets, but they're using their money more wisely with Shadow and Bone. It looks.
I
just
agree.
better.
Yes.
I think Witcher is like very hit or miss. There's parts that look great. There's fight scenes that are great, and then there's some episodes where it just looks like not good at all. So yeah, I mean, it's frustrating because as somebody who loves the video game, I'm like, I know it can be done well, but yeah, I'm just not a fan of the show. Leanna, do you have any parting thoughts?
They did the crows dirty.
I might not be as upset about crows things
So
as
much.
Leanna, but we'll see what they. Well, excuse me. We'll see what they do with them. I guess in the next season, which I'm assuming will occur. And then Sarah, do you have final thoughts?
I liked it. One scene that I thought was unnecessary was when Mal was kidnapped and then he was suddenly just like back. Like
That's so true.
an episode and a half later, and you didn't see him at all while he was being kidnapped or like how he escaped or anything. So I was like, why did
You're
we
right. I'm like, I was trying to think.
I
like,
wonder
when
if
did
they
that-
filmed scenes with that and then they just cut them because they were like, we don't need this to move the plot forward. But
Yeah,
they already
Sean,
had
do you
the
know what
story
she's
built
talking
around him
about?
being gone.
No, I already
My
forgot.
brother. Nick-
I remember like when he got kidnapped, I think I remember thinking, geez, a kidnapping thing. But then who kidnaps him and how's he come? I don't even remember.
Nikolai's
Nikolai's
brother.
brother kidnaps him because there's a whole like, oh, I see, Alina.
Oh
There's
yeah.
something between them, and
And
then
then yeah, nothing ever comes of that.
well, and Sarah,
That's
almost,
awesome.
So I kind of wondered too, because she's in that moment with the Darkling where she's like, I almost had him, Mal, and she gets mad at Mal. I'm like, you were so worried he was dead, and now you're just like, Mal, geez. And I'm like, I get that initial reaction, and then having oh my gosh, you're alive, but she didn't have that at all. She was just like pissed off at him for ruining the moment, and then it's like, I guess you're here. But
So if people
yeah,
thought
you're
Mal
right.
was toxic in the books, well, now Alina's the toxic one. Mal deserves better.
Yeah,
She
but
was
you're
like-
right, because I guess his tracking skills just allowed him to know exactly underground where she was.
He's the Firebird.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I did think Nikolai's brother was appropriately icky. Man, that guy nailed it. I was like, I feel bad for this actor because I've heard
Yeah.
people, the actress that plays Cersei Lannister, where people will come up to her and tell her they hate her.
Joffrey. Also,
Yeah,
the actor plays
yes,
Joffrey.
and he's apparently like the nicest person, but I feel like that guy was barely in it, and I'm like, bleh, I hate this guy.
Do these people know that the moving pictures aren't real? You know, that like just wondering.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, thank God he wasn't in it much because he sucked.
Yeah. I think that's another thing that I'm glad they didn't dwell on, because I feel like he's annoying for a little longer in the books, where he's just
Yeah, I
kind of a
think
thorn in your side, and I'm glad they dealt with that pretty quick.
Yeah, like we got what we needed out of him. We knew what kind of guy he was gonna be the moment he was introduced, so we didn't need too much more.
Yeah. Yeah. Sarah, were there any others? Because that was a great one to mention, because I was like, when did Mal get kidnapped?
Well, I heard that they were doing a spin-off series for Six of Crows.
Yeah.
And like that doesn't make any sense because they've so clearly set it up for like a season 3. So I'm just like so curious what's gonna happen. Like, how are they gonna go forward with it?
I think they just consider that really. I don't think they're clearly. I think they like debated spinning it off, but I think it's clear that they're not.
Yeah. Well,
I
that's
heard
what I was
the same.
confused. Because I just kept hearing people being like, "Oh, there's gonna be a spinoff. There's gonna be a spinoff," even after this season came out, and I was like, "That makes no sense, though."
The spinoff is the privateer gang goes and rescues people, I guess, and then they come back later. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sad that I missed a part of this chat the whole time. Just since Sean got home from work, I'm like, I can't wait for this chat. I missed the beginning when I feel like everybody's emotions were probably the most heightened. Ugh. But this was still really fun. I'm so glad that we got to chat about it because I was just bursting
Oh my
at the
God.
seams. I'm like, I'm so ready to talk about this. So
Yes, now I
I
can
will
watch-
say,
Now I can watch all your reviews because I've been putting it off until we have this stuff.
I was really loving the show, and then the final episode, I was like, I didn't love that. So, but I liked.
Oh no, finish. Then I'll
I was
go.
gonna say I've liked so much of what they've done, and I guess you could say they have my trust thus far. So I'm just trusting them, but I'm nervous. That's kind of where I'm at.
So what I was gonna say is it was funny because Elle finished first. We watched the first 5 episodes together, something like that, and then you watched the last 3, I think.
Yeah.
Anyways, she informed me that she did not like the end. So then I was very concerned, and then I watched it and I was like, that was fine. That was totally fine because I don't know what I'm missing. So
Yeah,
I thought it was just great.
I was super nervous. I had like really low expectations going into the last episode because of what you said, Elle. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, Sarah captured it very well.
Yeah.
The idea of like, wait, what? No. And I kept thinking like, okay, they just feel this way right now, but we have like 20 minutes left. They're gonna go off and then they just kept not, and they kept getting further away. And I'm like, no, he doesn't need to be the privateer. I just kept, feeling that way. And so then I was kind of pouting after, and I was like,
Yeah, that
and I went
makes
to
sense.
bed. Like,
So-
I'm upset.
I know you were waving to Leanna, but first I thought you were giving me like the music, like when you're giving your Oscar speech and then they start playing the music. I thought you're like, oh, okay, like we gotta wrap it up. I was like, are we going somewhere? Like, I'm sorry.
No, yes, it's the downside of, I guess, living together, being like, come on, Sean. That's what it looks like, which it wasn't. Leanna said in a private chat that she had to leave. So, and on that note, though, we probably should wrap it up. This was super
This
fun.
was so fun.
I'm glad we can have this chat. I will be very curious to see other people's thoughts. It seems more mixed feelings than season 1. I think season 1, I think everybody just went in with like kind of low expectations. Like the cast was great, but they're like, I mean, everything else, every other adaptation has not been amazing. And then we're like, wow, that was like, and they improved on things. And then this time around, I think they're taking some liberties, like you said, Jesse. It, at this point, really is. It seems like some fan fiction, which is what adaptations are a lot of times. But I think it's just harder to swallow the differences this time around. So we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I like
Alrighty. Well, thanks for joining. For anybody that watches the replay, let us know your thoughts, and we'll see you all later.